arrested the couple. Years. That this was not the action. Ethically cleansing for each Jerusalem. People are now homeless. Ethically cleansed by Israel to make way for illegal settlement. Comrades, the cruelty of this act and the cowardice of it shows the world how barbaric Israel is. Yet the world stands by and watches. Our governments only urge caution on the Israeli government. And by doing nothing, the Israeli state is given the green light to continue their suppression, repression, ethnic cleansing, and implementation of apartheid against Palestinians. The resistance of the Palestinians is in no way comparable to the massive military might of Israel. It is Israel that's occupied the Palestinian lands for 54 years. It's Israel that have moved nearly 700,000 illegal settlers into the West Bank. And it's Israel that's been ethnically cleansing Palestinians from their home and from their lands. It's Israel that's inhumanely blockaded Gaza for the last 14 years. And it's Israel that has become a state of guilty of building and implementing a system of apartheid against Palestinians. Let us never forget that with the international boycott and actions, we helped to bring down apartheid in South Africa and ensured that Nelson Mandela became the president. We can do this again. We must stand with the family who are attacked and oppressed by states, and all those wherever it occurs, whether that's in Colombia, in Turkey, in the Western Sahara, and in Palestine. We've got to fight for our governments to support opposition to these repressive regimes and stop ethnic cleansing, the violence and apartheid. We must fight back against our own government's plans designed to oppress our solidarity. We must oppose the police and crime bill, and we must oppose the anti-BDS laws. The Palestinians have been abysmally treated for decades and decades. That needs to change. We demand an end to the barbaric actions of the Israeli state. For too long, the international community has stood by the Israeli state and allowed them to carry out its crimes, and this cannot be tolerated or accepted any longer. So I say this to you, even though it is a difficult situation and there are forces ranged against us, we can end Israeli apartheid. Solidarity with the people of Palestine, solidarity with Sheikh Jarrah. Free Palestine!
Thank you, Tony. A fine reminder that the working class and trade unions of Britain stand with Palestine. Now, our next speaker is from one of the organisations that called tonight's demonstration. She's an anti-war activist, an anti-imperialist, the General Secretary of the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. Please welcome Kate Hudson.
Thanks very much indeed, and it's great to see so many of you here tonight. What's happened this week in Sheikh Jarrah is deeply shocking. What's happened to that family? What's happened to their home? What's happened to that community? And we 100%, no 1000% condemn the actions of the Israeli government in those attacks on that community, and it has to stop. And that demand for its end has to resound not only across London, across Britain, but across the world. That injustice has to end, and we are playing our part in bringing an end to that. And at the same time as we condemn the Israeli government for its brutal actions, its crimes, we must condemn our own government for not only sending arms to Israel and supporting them, but condoning these illegal actions through their failure to condemn them. Now, as Tony rightly said, we must do everything we can to bring about change for the Palestinian people. And one of the greatest weapons that we have is the BDS campaign: boycott, divestment and sanctions. And we know that historically it has been a very respected movement, and it has been a very effective movement, an incredibly successful way of bringing down criminal regimes. Only look at South Africa to see what the anti-apartheid movement was able to do there. But another of the great crimes of our government, not only supporting Israel, but beginning a process to limit not only the rights and freedoms of the Palestinians, but our own rights and freedoms, to engage in BDS, to engage in solidarity with the Palestinian people. And at this time, our own rights are being attacked, not only through the policing bill, but through the attempts to prevent BDS, whether at national or local government levels. So let's get together. Let's really fight back on this through the trade union movement. The trade union movement is a powerful movement. It must put everything it has into opposing these restrictions on our freedoms, and put everything it has together with all of us into supporting the freedom for Palestine. Long live Palestine, long live Gaza.
Thank you, Kate Hudson. Amazing work from herself and the team at CND. Next, here to talk to you is a young voice from Jerusalem. He's the president of the UCL Palestine Society, and he's speaking today on behalf of the Palestine Forum in Britain. Please welcome to the stage, Salim Nusibeh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to thank you all for coming out. Despite the short notice, I want to thank you. As a Palestinian, as a human being, on behalf of PFB, I want to thank you all. But it's important that we do turn out, because what we are seeing today is ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in East Jerusalem. Palestine's capital, East Jerusalem, and Jerusalem will always remain Islamic. It will always remain Arab, despite the ploys, despite the plots, despite the attempts to Zionify this region. There will always be the steadfastness of our people who endure. I want to salute the Murabitin of Jerusalem, those who stood steadfast and stand steadfast. They do not leave their homes, they do not sell their homes, they do not leave the field, and we will not leave them either. We will stand with them every step of the way. It is important that we turn out. It is important that we turn out, because when we came out in our thousands here in London, the Zionists, they went quiet. They reconsidered, they maneuvered, and now as the world has become quiet and the Palestinian activist scene has somewhat died down, then they are maneuvering again, plotting again with their aggression against our people. And this is what we have seen in the last few days with this apartheid Israeli Supreme Court decision and the moves of the Zionist aggression forces. But we will stand with our brothers and sisters in Palestine regardless of the circumstances. But it's not just the Murabitin of Al-Quds that I am saluting today. I have a few questions. I have a question for Mahmoud Abbas, that wet rag. Where is he? He was in Gad's home recently. Where is the PA? Where are the empty words? And I have a question for those regimes which have normalized relations with Israel. The Zionist entity, there can be no normalization with an abnormal apartheid regime. There can be no normalization with the tumor of the Middle East. This Zionist regime, Zionism is violence. Zionism is terrorism. Zionism is settler colonialism. There is no compromise. There is no compromise with violence. There is only doing away with violence. So I salute you all, and I say to you, let us stand fast. These traitor regimes, these traitor regimes in the Gulf, these imperialist regimes here in the West, We will stand against them, and we will see that this Zionist regime, this Zionist entity will collapse bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And I salute you as a son of Jerusalem, and a son of Palestine, and more specifically as a son of Sheikh Jarrah, that I will not leave the homes of my ancestors. I will not leave the olive trees. I will not leave the masajid. I will not let its land be desecrated by the footsteps of the barbarians. I will stand and their flags will wave, and I can see it. Inshallah ta'ala. We are walking, we are marching, and with one voice, I know it will come. That inshallah Kareem, we will pray in Masjid al-Aqsa, that we will pray, our brothers, our sisters and brothers and sisters, our Christian brothers and sisters will pray in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and that these Zionists will be removed. Their presence will be gone, and Jews, Muslims and Christians can live in peace, but they cannot live in peace with this secular Zionist regime, this regime which seeks to separate the children of this land. So whether students, whether activists, whether academics, whether just normal people, it is upon us to stand by these people, to say no to our government's policy, to say no to Boris Johnson's policy, no to the United States' policy, no to Biden's policy, no to Trump's policy, no to neo-colonialism. Free, free
Palestine!
Free, free
Palestine!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Salim. That was an incredible speech, wasn't it? Now you know of the strong and long history of solidarity between the people of Ireland and the people of Palestine, and I'm pleased to share this statement with you from Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin unequivocally condemns the forceful eviction of the Salihia family and the demolition of their home in East Jerusalem by the Israeli authorities on Tuesday night. We know this is the second time that this family has been left homeless by the actions of the Israeli authorities. In 1948, the Salihia family were uprooted from their home in Ein Kerem. This week, in freezing temperatures, they were again forcibly removed from their home and forced to watch on as Israeli bulldozers moved on to reduce their home to rubble. Now, a family of 15 people must face the reality of having lost their home in the middle of winter. The Salihia family is just the latest Palestinian family who have been evicted from their homes since Christmas in the latest Israeli onslaught against Palestinians. This cannot be allowed to continue. The silence of the international community shames us all. There needs to be an end to the forced dispositions, the demolitions, and the ongoing apartheid policies of the Israeli authorities. We call on the Irish government to speak out. The Dublin government has a responsibility to raise this targeting of Palestinians at the UN, and the government must speak out in Europe. Solidarity to our friends and comrades in London. Long live Palestine! From Sinn Féin. Now our next speaker is again from an organisation that called tonight's demonstration the Stop the War Coalition. Please welcome Stop the War officer.
It's a long name.
Shabir Laga! My mum and blood, this is my friend Shabir!
Thank you, Shani. Got there in the end. Greetings and solidarity, everyone. I think what we're seeing in Sheikh Jarrah right now, there are terms to describe them. Terms to describe the forced evictions of whole Palestinian families and the demolition of homes that belong to their families for generations. It's called ethnic cleansing, and it's called apartheid, and it has been central to the Zionist project that Palestinians have been inflicted with for over a century. It is a process that was begun by the British and that carries on today because Britain and the US enable it. That is why we are here today. It is to make clear to Israel, in that embassy over there, and all the way down to Tel Aviv, that we are watching them. that the world is watching them, that if it thinks that it can oppress the Palestinians without international opposition, they are mistaken. It is also to show the Palestinian people that they are not alone, that our solidarity with them is unwavering. But it is also a confrontation against our own state. We see you, we know your complicity, and we won't let you enable the ruthless and barbaric actions of the Israeli state in our name. Since its inception, Israel has been an outpost of Western imperialism, a means to maintain control of the Middle East. It's why Joe Biden said that the aid given to Israel is the best investment America has ever made. And if Israel didn't exist, they'd have to create one. And after the humiliating defeats for the West in the last 2 decades in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria, they are desperate to hold on to their influence. It's the act of imperial desperation that we're seeing flaring up in Ukraine right now, that we're seeing in the brinkmanship against China, and that we see in the carte blanche given to Israel to oppress the Palestinian people. This is why Palestine has always been a central part of the anti-war movement, and why our fight for an end to the occupation and apartheid is a struggle against imperialism. And here we've had one of the strongest Palestine solidarity movements in the world. And we saw last summer just how strong we were when 250,000 of us marched through London. And it's this that the British ruling class want to break. That's why they smeared Jeremy Corbyn and those of us who supported him. That's why they're censoring us and students in particular with the IHRA definition. And that's why Boris Johnson and Priti Patel and their cronies are going to try and pass an anti-BDS law later this year. They're scared of us, and you know what? They bloody well should be. Our movement doesn't just get to the heart of British imperialism. It is a part and parcel of the movements and the resistance against racism, against austerity, against climate inaction, and every other movement for social justice. And we know the solidarity that we encompass. We know our strength, and we know that when they support the crimes against the Palestinian people, when they attack our movement, when they pass the police and crime bill, and the nationality and borders bill, and the spy ghost bill, and whatever else that they're cooking up, that will only make us fight harder, to make their laws unworkable, to keep organizing and keep mobilizing and standing up for what is right. Am I right? Are we going to keep protesting? Are we going to keep standing for Palestine? If we are, let me hear you say, no justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
When I say long live Palestine, you say long live Sheikh Jarrah! Long live Palestine!
Long live Sheikh Jarrah!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Sheikh Jarrah!
As loud as you can so they can hear you! Long live Palestine!
Long live Sheikh Jarrah!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Sheikh Jarrah!
If you haven't already, join Stop the War, join PSC, join the organizations that have called this demo, and let's keep fighting solidarity.
Thank you so much, Shabir. What a brilliant speech that tied together so well all of the different forces that we're fighting against. Now, I want you guys to make some noise if you're part of a trade union. I'm part of a trade union, I'm in the NEU, and I'm about to read a statement from one of the national officers at the NEU who very sadly couldn't be with us today. Her name's Louise Reagan, and she's also on PSC's executive committee. I'm sorry that I cannot be with you this evening at this important protest to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian families in Sheikh Jarrah. These families are the friends of our union. Myself and our members have visited them in their homes and listened to their stories. It is disgraceful that they are arrested, injured, and that their homes are destroyed. The National Education Union has a long and proud history of standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people, and will continue to put pressure on our government to hold Israel accountable for its actions. I am proud to be a member of a union that continues to speak out against the violations faced by the Palestinian people, and it is my promise to you that we will continue to do this. Remember,
None of us are free until all of us are free. Solidarity to everyone who has turned out to show solidarity tonight. We must continue to fight for freedom and justice for Palestine. Long live Palestine. Now, our next speaker is a very special man. He's chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign in the UK and an all-round pretty great guy. Please make some noise for Kamal Hawash.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you very much indeed for that introduction. Thank you all for coming out. We are here in solidarity with the Palestinian people. I'd like to just say a couple of sentences in Arabic and then I'll go back to English. نوجه من هنا من لندن أمام السفارة الإسرائيلية أننا نتضامن مع شعبنا في كل أماكن تواجده وبالذات في الشيخ جراح وفي النقب وفي تلال الخليل الذين يتعرضون لهجمة مسعورة لتطهيرهم عرقيا. فنحن من هنا نقول لكم أننا في حملة التضامن مع فلسطين والمؤسسات الأخرى سنتضامن معكم وحتى يحقق الشعب الفلسطيني جميع حقوقه. Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Friends, I speak to you not only as the chair of the PSC, but as a Palestinian from the capital of Palestine, Jerusalem. Not only that, but I have a very special attachment to Sheikh Jarrah. One of the houses that is threatened with eviction belongs to my cousin. So it's a very personal issue. Not only that, not only are these families threatened with eviction, my cousin's son has been detained in prison without charge since the 10th of August. Murad Atiyah is that person. He is an Arabic language teacher and he was about to submit his dissertation for his master's. So I want you to shout from here, Free Murad Atiyah! Free Murad Atiyah! Free Murad Atiyah! Free Murad Atiyah! Now you've heard quite a bit about what's happening in Sheikh Jarrah. What happened over the last couple of days is the most appalling, the most evil act of destroying a family's livelihood and then destroying their home and throwing them out on the street. No normal state would do that. And as a previous speaker said, Israel is certainly not a normal state. But the week before, they also killed the Israeli military, mowed down an elderly man. Sheikh Adlul was mowed down because he used to stand against them simply armed with a Palestinian flag. So raise your flags proudly. Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! The other area that is being attacked very severely is the Naqab, which is the southern part of historic Palestine, where the JNF and other organizations are trying to turn the desert green. But they're not doing it in empty areas. They are displacing Palestinian Bedouins from their homes, from their villages, and they are resisting. And what has been really, really heartening to see is the number of young people and the number of women who've also come out and have led that fight. And in PSC next week there will be a webinar where we'll be talking about the Negev in particular. So please look at the PSC website for that. So the oppression occurs all over Palestine. Now, one of the things you might say, what is the British government doing about this? Well, just before the garden centre was demolished, the British Consul General went and stood and had her photograph taken, as do the EU ambassadors or delegations and others. The US one doesn't come. That's not enough, is it? It's absolutely shameful that our government here, this country that was responsible for the Balfour Declaration, for the dispossession of the Palestinian people, all they can do is go and take some selfies. That is shameful. Shame on you, Britain. Shame! Shame on you, Britain. What should be happening is that they, instead of standing up against Russia and the Ukraine because they don't want that occupation to happen, well, there has been an occupation in Palestine for as long as the Palestinians can remember. Caused by Britain, supported by Britain, and it is time the British government started acting like the democracy it claims to be, listened to the people, stood with the Palestinian people until they are free. Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen, for shedding some well-needed light onto the situation in Palestine. Next up to the stage to talk to you today is the General Secretary of the University and College Union. She's a long-term friend and supporter of the Palestinian people. We're happy to have her here today. It's Jo Grady. Welcome her to the stage.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm here today on behalf of UCU, which, if you don't know, is the biggest trade union for college and university staff in the world, and we stand utterly united. Said, what you do and say now about what's happening in Palestine will go down in history. He said, reminding us all that silence and inaction during these moments equals complicity. And that is why it is so important that we are here tonight outside the Israeli embassy. The expulsion of the Salehi family from their home on Wednesday morning by the Israeli occupation forces, the bulldozing of their home, the beating of a 9-year-old Palestinian girl is all the more horrifying because it is normal in Palestine. Apartheid isn't an insult, an abstract category, or an analogy. It is a material reality every day for Palestinian people. A daily reality of exile, violence, ritual humiliation, ethnic cleansing, dispossession, and expulsion. Having flattened hundreds of Palestinian villages, its founding act in 1948, Israel has demolished more than 49,000 homes in occupied Palestine since 1967. And let's remember that Israel's terrorization and dispossession of Palestinian families in East Jerusalem captures the essence of settler colonialism. Palestinians whose homes were built in Sheikh Jarrah in the late 1950s were already refugees. They were expelled from their homes in other parts of Palestine during 1948. This means that Palestinian families whose homes are being bulldozed as we speak have twice been expelled and exiled from their home and land. And we in Britain, and I know this has already been said this evening, but I want to say it again, we have a very special responsibility to the Palestinian people. It was on our watch, the people in all of the fancy houses up this road and elsewhere in London, it was on our watch that the settler colonisation of Palestine began more than a century ago. So I am proud to stand here this evening on behalf of you and so many others in the trade union movement. But our solidarity must be tireless, pushing the British government to hold Israel to account, and that should start with sanctions to halt the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their home in the capital city of Jerusalem. I have a message for anyone this evening who is in a trade union or who isn't, to be active in your union and to find out what is happening in your branch on this issue. Our silence cannot, our silence will be inaction and will be complicit.
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine!
Free, free!
Palestine! Free, free!
And I'll finish.
Free, free!
Until Palestinian people win freedom and return and self-determination, we will loudly be standing with solidarity, not just in UCU, but on the streets. Thank you.
Make some noise for Jo Grady! All right, I've got one more quick statement from another trade union whose representative very sadly couldn't be here tonight. It's from Liz Wheatley, who's chair of Unison's International Committee. Sheikh Jarrah, a community which for over half a century has bravely and steadfastly resisted the occupation, determined not to be made refugees for a second time. We stand in solidarity with you. When the Israeli government tries to present your situation as a complex land dispute and pick you off one by one, you have not only stood together, but worked tirelessly to ensure the world cannot ignore your plight. We know
that when you stand on your roofs or fight through the courts to resist eviction or demolition, you are not only defending your own homes, but the thousands of Palestinians who are displaced or at risk of displacement in East Jerusalem and throughout the rest of the West Bank. Last year alone, 1,203 women, children and men saw their family homes crushed by military bulldozers, or worse still, were forced to demolish their own homes to avoid further punishment. And each one of these 902 demolitions, like the destruction of the Salhia family home, is a grave violation of international law. And it's high time that our government oppose this. To the people of Sheikh Jarrah, when you resist this occupation and fight for your community and for your homes, Unison stands in solidarity with you. And we will continue to stand with the people of Palestine until justice and freedom prevails. Long live Palestine! Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
All right, our next speaker is representing the Muslim Association of Britain, who are one of the co-organisers of today's demonstration. Please make some noise for Mustafa.
Friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all. It saddens me to say that we have been the victim of Israel's plan. They wanted us to get angry, they wanted us to protest, and then they wanted us to go home satisfied. So that when the cameras left and when the coverage slowed down, they could return to the ethnic cleansing of Sheikh Jarrah. Well, let them know this. So as long as there is one Palestinian left committed to the resistance, committed to their homeland, and committed to freedom, they will have us as friends and advocates in every corner of the world. We will not abandon Sheikh Jarrah, nor will we abandon Palestine. Sheikh Jarrah is that proud district that has become the physical manifestation of the struggle between the oppressed and the oppressor, the struggle between apartheid and its opponents, and the struggle between justice and injustice. We must commit ourselves to justice with every fibre of our being, as they have committed themselves in Sheikh Jarrah. Friends, let us go from protesting to organising. Let us pledge that if companies support the occupation, we will boycott them. Let us pledge that if companies support the apartheid, we will divest from them. And let us pledge that our goal is sanctions against the Israeli regime that lead to a free Palestine. Let us remind the politicians that being a friend to Israel is being a friend to apartheid. Let me repeat that again. Being a friend to Israel is being a friend to apartheid. Let us remind those politicians that if they make BDS impossible, if they ban it as they are threatening to, then we will take all of our energy, all of the energy of the BDS movement, and we will turn it into a never-ending campaign that will oust these morally broken politicians and replace them with ones that are unafraid to sanction Israel. Let me make that clear. If you make BDS impossible, then we will have no option but to replace this political class, a morally corrupt one, with a class that is better. Let me conclude. Sheikh Jarrah is the constant alarm that reminds us of our obligations. It is the loud horn that wakes us up to struggle for justice. So let us stay awake and organize against Israel and against Israeli apartheid in every workplace, in every school, in every university, and at every opportunity. Let us organize wherever we find ourselves, and let us continue till we get to see a free Palestine. Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Thank you very much.
Next to the stage to talk to you, we have a student activist. She's the Queen Mary Palestine Society Treasurer, and she's a volunteer for FOA. Welcome to the stage, Hannah Baghdad.
First of all, I just want to say that it's so amazing to see all of us gathered here on an extremely chilly Friday evening, standing together in solidarity with the Palestinian cause. So say it with me now: free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! It's so wonderful to see us all engaging in politics and addressing our sentiments to the Palestinian cause, and seeing everyone come from such different and diverse backgrounds. For such a melancholic cause, it's stirring to see such a strong sense of solidarity and unity. 2021 was a pivotal year in seeing the international movement grow immensely for the Palestinian cause. We were seeing masses of people come out of their homes to protest, hundreds of thousands of people writing to their MPs, millions of people sharing the crucial news, using hashtags like Save Sheikh Jarrah. The student movement in particular took the matter onto campus to make sure that universities stop holding ties and being complicit in Israeli war crimes. We urged our universities to reject the IHRA definition and to stop censoring Palestinian activism, and we are still taking leaps at this current moment. The Palestinian cause was making it to mainstream news, and it was and is because of people like us. People who are constantly working every single day to make sure that Palestinians will one day be free. In this past week, we've seen Israel demolishing the homes in Sheikh Jarrah yet again, forcing evictions yet again, confiscating land yet again, just as they have been for decades after decades. So let's call it how it is: a form of illegal injustice, a form of ethnic cleansing, a form of apartheid. Sheikh Jarrah is just a single example of Israeli settler colonialism. Israel are committing their war crimes every single day, and we need to remember that whilst it is Save Sheikh Jarrah, Save Silwan, Save Brooklyn, Save Lifter, it comes all together to form Save Jerusalem. Sanctions need to be imposed on Israel to stop the Judaization of Israel and to stop the apartheid. The UK government is complicit in these crimes, so we call on you, Downing Street, we call on you, Priti Patel, we call on you, Boris Johnson, to uphold international law and stop trade with Israel. No matter how much they try and stop us, we will never forget Palestine. Let's continue to help stop the eviction of Palestinian families from their homes. Let us continue sharing the message and contacting our MPs. Let us continue implementing BDS into our daily lifestyles. And most importantly, let us continue with our relentless work that we do every single day until we see a free Palestine. So once again, say it with me: free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
All right, I've got a big treat for you guys. Next up on stage, he's a rapper, he's an activist, but most of all, he's a fighter against injustice. The warmest welcome to Loki!
It's important that we are absolutely clear about the organizations who in this country are working against us. Now, number one, Al-Ad, the organization which is the most vicious in its settling and ethnic cleansing of Sheikh Jarrah, has a branch in this country. The name of this branch is UK Friends of City of David. It has all of the same directors that Al-Ad has within Palestine, occupied Palestine. So let's be clear that when we're talking about Sheikh Jarrah, we're also talking about what is happening here. The very same organization has a funding branch in this country with offices, with its directors clear on Companies House. In addition to that, you also have to know that the very same sources which funded Tommy Robinson, Katie Hopkins, Middle East Forum are pumping their money into Sheikh Jarrah to settle and ethnically cleanse that area. Now, we have recently seen a momentous campaign in Australia where 40% of the acts were pulled out of the Sydney Festival because they have taken funding from the Israeli embassy. Now, look carefully at the response to that. There's an organization by the name of Creative Community for Peace. It is led by a gentleman by the name of Dave Renza, the former director of Universal Publishing. He got together with his anti-BDS organization and got signatures from some of the biggest figures within the music industry. Creative Community for Peace is one with the US organization Stand With Us. Stand With Us is a proxy of the Israeli embassy in the United States. Let's be clear, after the years and years of propaganda against Jeremy Corbyn, which we withstood for all of those years, people had livelihoods ruined, people thrown out of any form of political subjectivity. One of the biggest organizations behind it, the Board of Deputies, they put in their trustees report in 2020. We have a close working relationship with the Israeli embassy. We have strengthened links with the IDF. Let's be absolutely clear. What has happened here in this country to us over the last half a decade at least has been an operation of that embassy right there. We are part of what is happening to those in Sheikh Jarrah. This is not a paternalistic thing where we are looking at this place. We are part of what is happening there. In the words of the White Institute, London is the hub of the hubs of delegitimization of Israel. The Zionist think tank, the White Institute, draws a distinction between two types of people that stand with the Palestinians: criticizes and delegitimizes. And the fact is, they have tried to mold us into criticizers through many different organizations within our society across the last few years. But we will stand strong and will not submit to that. We must have a literacy about the organizations which are trying to harm us in this country now, today. Just before I go, I want you to sing with me. This is for Palestine, Ramallah, West Bank, Gaza. This is for the child that is searching for an answer. We shall take your tears and replace them with laughter. Long live Palestine! This is for Palestine of kids, the capital Jerusalem. I know people marching to the wall and they're shooting them. Suppression is a question. Resistance is the answer. Long live Palestine! Long live Palestine! Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here today, protesting the ethnic cleansing in Sheikh Jarrah, in Silwan, in Beta, in Naqab, in Masafir Yatta, and all over Palestine. And we must link that to the ethnic cleansing that started in 1948. This is not the first, the second Nakba, this is not the third Nakba. This is the same Nakba continuing until today. And that is what we must resist. It is our collective responsibility to make sure that the Nakba does not continue. The impunity that allowed Zionist militias to get away with the ethnic cleansing of Palestine in 1948 is the same global moral failure that allows that impunity today in Sheikh Jarrah, in Naqab, and all over Palestine. And that is what we must resist. We must resist that in Palestine, we must resist that on these streets, and we must stand in solidarity with the resistance movement to boycott all of Israel until it stops the ethnic cleansing, until we dismantle colonialism, until we end the Zionist ethnic cleansing of Palestine. We must push every single organisation we are part of to have no part, no investments in anything to do with the Zionist settler colonial regime. And we must stop our politicians from being re-elected without imposing sanctions on Israel until we dismantle colonialism. And we must stand in solidarity with all of our brothers and sisters resisting all over the world against colonialism, against the military-industrial complex, against the imperial forces that allow this to continue. I just want to say, basically, أنا للنكبة ألا تستمر. It is time for the Nakba not to continue. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Don't stop.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? And what do we want? Justice! And when do we want it? And what do we want? Justice! And when do we want it? Our next speaker is a man who has stood up for justice his whole life and his whole political career. He's MP for Hayes and Harlington, and he's the People's Chancellor. It's John McDonnell MP!
Vuoi che ci avviciniamo? Tu vuoi? Ah, che non ci vede.
I want to explain quietly why I'm here.